Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is Chris Griffin, the Director of Innovation for Johns Manville, and we are going to talk about spinning off a service in your company, building a new division, assessing when it's necessary, why it's necessary, how to go about doing it. And we will dig into that in just a minute. Before we get started, I want to let you know that Floor Academy podcast is here for you so that you can go from owning a job to owning an asset. And with our weekly business discussions via this format, you can take the little tidbits and advice and slowly work your way into running a more successful, profitable company to where it's taking up less of your time and you're able to devote more resources where you actually want to. Make sure you check out flooracademypod.com. Go check out the, find the link for your favorite listening service. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review. If you'd like to help support the show, you can go to patreon.com/flooracademy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping us to continue to produce this content for you. Before we get started with Chris, I want to let you know that for over 65 years, Laticrete has been a leading manufacturer of products and systems covering tile and stone installation, masonry veneer installation, resinous and decorative floor finishes, concrete construction chemicals, and concrete restoration. They also offer an array of low VOC and sustainable products. Their products contribute to LEED certification, exceed commercial and residential VOC building requirements, and are backed by the most comprehensive warranties in the industry. For more information on Laticrete and the products they offer, visit www.laticrete.com. I'll bring Chris in right now. Chris, who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Hey, Carl, my name is Chris Griffin. I'm Director of Innovation for Johns Manville. A slightly unusual job. Johns Manville, or JM, is a fairly big company, something like $5 billion with three major divisions. They are older divisions, they're mature, they're very good businesses. But being mature and in kind of a lot of it in the building product space, they're not what you call high growth businesses like startups or exciting tech companies, but we're very good at what we do at more modest growth. So my job as Director of Innovation is to find new businesses. So essentially it's like working as a startup incubator within the framework of a larger company. So essentially Johns Manville parent company is like a venture capitalist. They give our team money. And our job is to look for new ideas for new businesses. Then we scope them out with business plans. And the ones that we like, we actually start new businesses within the framework of Johns Manville. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I do.
Okay. And how long you been with them? How did you find yourself in this position? Where'd you start? Like, kind of what's your background a little bit?
I've got a degree and actually a PhD in material science. Did a lot of research and development. I was with 3M for 10 years, a couple of years with Lucent Technologies. And next month will be my 20 years at Johns Manville. So almost all the time I've had at JM has been R&D, product development, innovation, commercialization. 15 years in our roofing business, low slope roofing, and the last 5 in this position of innovation. So it's kind of a nice role, and that I can balance the experience I have from a technical background, mm-hmm. and also I had a business leadership role at one point. So it's combining those. It's everything to do, you imagine, with innovation startup. Have a little bit of technical knowledge, a little bit of business knowledge, fairly rounded, if you like, or broad background, and that helped. Know a little bit of everything helps.
Yeah, it's good to be well rounded. If you're too heavy on one side or another, it doesn't always work. So, no, that's awesome. Where does this even start? Right. So within Johns Manville, I know that GoBoard came out of the roofing division, and so somebody had to look at it and say, well, that product can be used over here, right? But then that has to get pitched. It has to get accepted. They have to decide to bankroll it. So what does it even look like to have an idea and try and get it into the innovation group so that it can even start becoming a division if it's successful in the future, right? Because you'd spin it eventually, you spin it off as its own company.
Mm. Well, you hit the key point there, saying it was GoBoard is a derivative of a product we developed about almost 20 years ago now in our roofing business, and essentially taking that product, there's some modifications into a whole new industry and a whole new application. That's something that's called an adjacency. So I give the example sometimes if we said, "Hey, we're going to make chips for Apple phones, for iPhones." Well, we know nothing about chips. We know nothing about iPhones. So we're going to fail. It's a business we're not going to be successful in. We don't understand the technology. We don't understand the products, and we have no idea about the customers and the markets and the channels to market, things like that. So when you have an adjacency, it means you're bringing a new technology into an existing market space, or an existing product into a new market space. So in that case, either the market and the customers, the channel to market, either that's the same, something you know and understand today, or you're bringing an existing product or technology, something you already understand today, into a new market. So it's not new product technology into new customers. You already know one of them. So it gives you a much higher degree of confidence that you can be successful. So in the case, Carl, you brought up the topic of GoBoard. Yeah, it's a technology product from our roofing division. Who said, what else could we use this for? So we understand the product, the technology, we know how to make it, we understand the quality, everything about this product, the performance. Where else could we use it? And I can't remember exactly who it was. There's a gentleman I've worked with for a long time here called Dwayne Parody. He's the technical, the brains behind GoBoard from the very start. I think Dwayne was the one who said, "Hey, this will be a really good tile backer board." I can't remember the reason. It goes back a long way. I think he'd maybe just doing some work at home in his bathroom, his tiles, saying, "Man, some of these other products are really hard and difficult to work with. This could be easier." And I think he just brought some of our roofing product home and started playing with it. He said, "Man, this is a lot easier." So he came into work and he pitched it as an opportunity. And I think the timing was good because at the time the company was looking about how we could do a better job of innovation, i.e., new business innovation. And this is perhaps the first idea that came along. Like everything, there's a bit of luck involved as well. The timing was right. The opportunity was being created. Dwayne saw an opportunity for new business. The environment was right, and it just clicked and came together.
Okay. So for a contractor that's, a lot of times, like we'll have demo services, we'll have installation services. Maybe we offer some kind of like epoxy coatings or something. These things can grow. What are we looking for at, how much volume do we need to be doing, or like, what are your determining factors for like trying to figure out if something should even get pushed off onto its own, or that segment should be looked at to be grown so that, you know, what are the requirements of the business to say we should even consider looking at this as an idea?
Yeah. I think back to what I was just saying, Carl. I think it's like there's got to be an adjacency. You gave a couple of examples there. You talked about epoxy. Hey, we use epoxy flooring for I don't know what it is, garage floors. Maybe let's say residential epoxy flooring in residential markets. So we do these kind of customers, homeowners, garage floors, basement floors. I don't maybe outdoor patios. I don't know what it is. But we're very, very good at doing epoxy floors. We have good installers. We understand the products. We know the companies who make them. We know where to buy the products. We know how to install them. We have enough confidence and experience in the products and our installation that we're happy to give warranties on them. we're very good at this business in epoxy for residential applications. You say, how can we leverage that to do something else? In this situation, it could be, we should be doing more commercial work. There's a whole huge world out there in commercial. Let's take our knowledge and experience of procuring, installing, warrantying epoxy flooring, take it to a new market. Let's go to commercial. Now, you might decide, well, commercial is huge. It's factories, it's schools, other educational facilities, it's museums, it's public buildings, it's hotels, a whole load of different things. So I think you have to segment your market. So the adjacency here is your familiarity with the products and the technologies. How do you find a new market that works for you? And I think commercial, it's too big. There's a saying that in marketing there are 3 rules of marketing. It's segment, segment, segment. It's like real estate. 3 rules is location, location, location.
Yes.
In marketing, segment, segment, segment. Decide where you want to go. What's a reasonable segment? The way we do it, and we're a bigger company. I usually get a marketing report. I go to a company that does marketing, and they say, I want to look at the use of epoxy flooring in different markets. And you'll spend 25 grand and you get a custom report back saying in residential, in North America, or maybe it's the western half of North America, wherever we want to be, this is the size of the market. It's 20% residential, 20% medical, however you want to segment it. And you look at those and you look at, what's the size, what's the growth, and you say, education looks like the best market for me. In my area, there's a growing population. They're putting in a lot more schools, maybe higher education as well. They're building new buildings. How do I get in? How do I get into that space?
Okay.
It's big and it's tight.
So, I mean, you're looking at trying to, you got to identify a niche, and then you can start working within that. It like you said, right? So it's going to be commercials too big. So now where can I find specifically that I feel I would have a good fit? Because I don't think a small contractor with a couple of crews probably can't go and afford a, marketing report from a company. Right. But you can look at what are we really good at? What kind of environment would we excel in? Do my guys want to work nights? Because if you look at a lot of the medical field, the hospitals all want night work done. Okay. So if your guys don't want to be up at night, well, let's throw that out. All right. Schools, probably after hours or during the summer. So it's going to be very, it'll have seasons, right? So now we have to build something that like fills in other parts of the year. And so I think you have to do the research in order to figure out where do my services actually fit, and then can I sell them in that market? Do I have the contacts there? Do I have the things? And I'm assuming this is all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. This was like GoBoard was brought to the table as, hey, I think this will work in showers, but you wouldn't be here years later continuing to pitch this had you not seen a need in the market for the product. So that research went on behind the scenes, I'm assuming, and helped push it forward.
But I think you used some good words there, Carl. It's maybe I should have said that too. What are you good at? What are you really good at? Okay, we're really good at epoxy flooring. And funny you mentioned schools, that made me think of that as well. Another way to segment commercial, even go down to schools, is new construction versus remodel, retrofit. New construction can be very tough, driven by general contractors, low prices. That could be a tough business. The companies are very, very good at that. If it's things like remodel or retrofit, there's generally more money available there. So it's more based on relationships. You can sell the value that you bring. You don't necessarily have to be low bid. You can say, okay, I may be cost a bit more, but here's the value I will deliver to you because I'm so good at what you do. So another way to segment, you want new construction or retrofit. Very, very different markets. for what you're doing. And maybe that comes from, in this case of epoxy flooring, maybe you don't do new construction epoxy floors, maybe for residential, maybe it's retrofit. Whatever you are good at, you've got to have one foot firmly planted in that space. Then the other foot's waving out there, trying to find out where can I put my second foot down? Now I have a firm footing on with my first foot. It's just finding what you're good at and leveraging that.
Well, so I think that's a great point of like, okay, you can't start having your company have multiple divisions right off the bat, because if you just started, you don't even have a firm fitting within your market yet. Your company isn't established, it's not well known. You're struggling to have income come in, and I think a lot of times people try and grow too quick, or they offer way too many services. It may be that you have the equipment to do specialized demos, and you can do the installs, and you can clean up and make it look really nice at the end, but you're offering that as a package and you're trying to get known. To try and spin something off and just go offer demo services right away and hire a crew to go do them when you don't even have that established name and reputation yet probably doesn't work. And that's where, within your position, probably, you have the backing of Johns Manville and Berkshire Hathaway at if we look at a larger level, there's a lot of money backing things to where the budget is there to have money to play with, but it didn't happen overnight. It sounds like the innovation group is something fairly new, or it wasn't that you were just like new to being the director of it. It sounds like it's kind of like newer, of getting into more R&D and really encouraging these things to come out.
Yeah, the innovation group here. We've been here for about 8 years,
Okay.
something like that. I've been in this role for about five of those years. As you're talking, Carl, more things come to mind. I spent 15 years in our roofing business. I talked to a lot of contractors, big roofing contractors, big and small. I mean, 3 or 4 people, up to hundreds of people, these roofing contractors. And yeah, they install roofs. Some do new roofs, new construction. Again, tough business, but a certain business model works.
Mm-hmm.
Others focus a lot on retrofit. On average, a roof has to be replaced every 20 years, but you're still waiting 20 years for the next one. Some contractors have branched out. They've created a new division, for example, in warranty and service. A leak division, rather than just put new roofs on. Who do I call if I've got a leak in my roof? Okay, so you keep a division or a few people that start out fixing leaks. Then they start doing maintenance, proactive maintenance, routine maintenance. If your roof's not looking, they'll come and inspect it. They'll fix it up so it never leaks. Again, taking that core, what you're really good at roofing, and finding a new way to do that. And that's kind of nice because roofs always leak. Even on empty buildings, the roofs are wearing out every year, which is a nice thing. And it can be in a downturn. People maybe stop re-roofing because it's expensive, but they still have to maintain and fix roofs. So it kind of creates rather than the big ups and downs of new construction spending, of boom and recession, it creates a more steady baseline of income coming in. Because roofs are always leaking, and you don't have a choice. If a roof's leaking, you've got to fix it. In the epoxy floor situation, the problem with your floor, you've already got to fix it. You'll have other problems, going on. It can create a more consistent, predictable revenue stream versus the ups and downs of construction. So it's another way to look at it. Taking your expertise and what you do in installing floors, let's work on maintenance and things like that. Maintenance contracts with people, whatever it might be. So it doesn't have to be a new market like commercial construction. It could be maintenance.
Yes. Lots of options. Look at what you're good at, where you fit. I think what I was interested in finding out is, like you said, we were talking with, you got to have something firm to stand on, right? And so even, innovation's been around for like 8 years, like you said, with Johns Manville, but and there was probably always some sort of R&D going on, but it was much more calculated. It seems like the innovation group, from my conversations with Shauna, is there's a lot of fun over there. There's a lot of there's riskier ideas happening, but it's calculated, but there's a firm base from Johns Manville as a company that's established that says, okay, we are, we've been around in the industry, we're successful in these areas, we can predict, revenue fairly consistently because we have such a long track record, and we need these numbers so we can pull out X amount of dollars to allow play with, right? How do we look at our company? How do we get it to that point? When do we know that we can start taking money to put towards these other ventures, because we're looking to grow?
Wow, that's a good question, a tough question. You're right. Innovation, under the title innovation, has been there for 8 years. Our company's been around since 1858. It's been a few years, and it's always had R&D. But the R&D, product development, whatever you want to call it, has always been focused on how do we get better at our core businesses. Take the example of roofing. How do we make sure we always have new products, better products? How do we manufacture them better? Research and development R&D has always been focused on how do we get better at roofing? How do we get better at our core business?
Mm.
We are looking at this is now looking at how do we find the next business as opposed to getting better at the ones we have. That's why we're broken out
Okay.
separately. We're broken out separately to do that. There's a couple of reasons for that. A lot of the products in a couple of our businesses, they are, and I hate to use this word, but it's true, they're kind of commodity products. And when you have a company that makes a lot of commodity products, you operate in a certain way. A lot of strong operational discipline, cost control, a lot of finance people, a lot of data. But I said, Johns Manville, we're actually pretty good at doing that. It's a good business. We have stable cost structures or controlled cost structures, and it works very well. If you're going to have a new business, you got a totally different model. And I pick a number out of the air. I'm not saying it represents GM, but in that kind of commodity business, maybe if you grow 10% a year, you're doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Stronger than GDP. That kind of business, that's good growth. If you're doing innovation, a new business, you want to be growing 50, 100, 200% a year. To do that, you've got to operate very differently. A startup, a small business operates very differently to a mature business. You probably lose money for the first couple of years in a new venture.
Yeah.
But the money, I'd say it's losing money, that the money you're in that investment, that will pay back as you start to grow. So within the framework of Johns Manville, hiring 10 people to do something new, it really doesn't fit our cost model. So they've broken us out to the side. They're happy to, as happy as they can be. They understand they may lose money in the first couple of years, but as the business starts to take hold and grow, then you'll start recouping that investment. So, what you get for that high investment relative to the rest of the business, you get growth. Rather than 10% growth, you get 50 or 100% growth. That's what you're buying with your investment. So, with a new division, a new breakout, a new business, new way of doing something, your cost structure and operating model is going to be very different to what you have today. So I'm presuming, a lot of your customers have businesses, pretty well-run businesses. They understand their profit and loss. They understand where their income's coming from, where the money goes, how much money they're making. They probably understand that pretty well.
I hope so.
Yeah,
That's that. If not, that's why they're here.
That's what I listened to you. And if you do a new startup division, startup business, a spin-off, an adjacency, whatever you want to call it, you got to throw that model. You got to throw that model out the window. The model you're used to working with your core business is not going to apply to your new venture. You've almost got to break it out separately, certainly from an accounting standpoint, because you don't want to start doing your new venture. If you include those financials with your core business, your core financials are going to get all messed up. They'll be different to usual. You don't know what's right or wrong. You really have to account for it differently, so you can say, "Hey, my core business is still doing well." It's your core business which is going to fund the new growth in the new venture.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have to have all that, the same attention on your core business to make sure that's running well, generating the cash for you to make a profit, pay your employees, and to start your new business. So it's almost like it is like starting a new business. You need separate accounting to make sure how much you're spending on your new business isn't worth it without disrupting your core business, which is painful.
No, I think that's great advice. So you don't necessarily have to get, you're not having to form a new company and get an LLC and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
but you can literally, you can go in QuickBooks and start up another set of books or an
Yeah,
adjacent set of books within your main account and say, this is everything that's happening over here with this idea I'm trying to get off the ground, and I'm funneling money into it, but I'm not mucking up my books so it looks like the new thing is profitable when it's not, because I'm only
yeah,
filtering money over there. So I need to know if I'm losing, how I'm losing, and it at the end of the day, folks, it comes back to knowing your numbers and being able to see them, interpret them, understand them. Okay, I tried this sales tactic and growth went up 20%, and then I tried this one and it looks like I lost everything, and I was able to buy this material instead of this one, and that helped the end cost 10%. And I think that was something else you had mentioned was within Johns Manville as a whole, you look at how do we refine core processes to be successful? How do we better our manufacturing output? How do we, use more of the raw materials we purchase and have less waste? How do we get it from point A to point B more successfully? Right? It's all those minute details, and that's going to get company one off the ground and going. And you can continue to refine those, but then you found a way to funnel money off of that to start getting the other things successful. And you have to, it's a risk, right? You got to be willing to lose the money to make the money for that explosive growth. And then you can get it out there. And then you don't have to have that model anymore. You get to switch it to the model of, okay, how do I refine all these processes to continue to
yeah.
have it be successful? And when are we looking at what's the point? I know, well, I don't know. I won't mention that. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that or not, but, how do we know when something's ready to go? Like, when do we even start saying, okay, this no longer needs to it's successful on its own? Is that just looking at the numbers and saying we don't need to pump money into it? They're actually producing enough on their own to fund themselves, or what are the standards that we're trying to look for?
Yeah. For us, the biz we've had two of our new businesses. I say leave the nest. I wouldn't say spun off. They've actually gone into one of the three parent divisions at Johns Manville. But they have grown up. They become gone from babies to petulant teenagers to adults, and they've kind of left the nest and moved. I look at three things for when they're ready to do that. What is critical mass? What are they big enough to sustain themselves? And I can't give you a number for that. It depends very much on your own business, um, or relative to the size of what I might call your core business or your main business. Um, so here at Johns Manville, I could say it's big enough to be noticeable. So I'll give you an example. If we had a division that was $1 billion in
Hmm.
sales, and say, "Hey, my new business is now $5 million." It's like, well, it's not even in the noise level. So you think it's not going to get noticed. It's not going to get any attention. So it's going to be much bigger than that. It depends on the size of your parent business, but big enough to be noticeable.
Okay.
Does that mean 10, 15, 20% of your parent sales? I don't know. Big enough to be noticeable and get some attention. Because I'm sure in all your businesses, you've got 10 things you have to work on, or five priorities you have to work on. If this is a very small part of your business, it's not going to get any attention. So it's got to be out on its own until it reaches a critical mass. So if it does, if you create a new division somehow or merge with the core of your company, it's got to be big enough to be noticeable and get the attention it needs to continue growing.
Hmm.
So
Well,
critical mass. So,
okay. I was gonna
so
say,
that,
I think that's a great point. It's as somebody, a lot of us, a lot of the audience is owner operators, and so you may have something successful, you may have a crew or two, and you can get that thing going well. And if you're trying to spin something else out and grow another smaller niche service that you can offer, that critical mass point may be just being able to hire somebody to manage it. Because how do you start trying to manage two companies and be in two places at once and do different types of bids, and like you're going to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and you're not going to be able to focus on one or the other. So you may need to, that critical mass point may be, I can actually hire somebody to handle this responsibility for me. I've grown it enough. I'm not going to make any money from it for a year or two, but I can pay somebody a salary to manage it, and it'll be their responsibility to grow it.
I think that is a great point, Kyle. Yeah, if you're running your business and it's reached a certain mass where it's the same thing. It's a critical mass where it's going to get attention. You say, like, I don't have the time for this. So that's another, another criterion could be when it's big enough that I need someone to manage it for me. Mm-hmm. Someone has to take it on and run it. That could be another criterion for one. I just don't have time anymore. I need someone dedicated to doing it. That's another great point. But critical mass is one. The other one, there are three for me. The second one is sustained growth. Okay, you've got your core business, maybe you've hired a couple of people, you've got this new thing going, this new thing you're trying, and you've grown 100% the first year, then 50%, then 50%. In a couple of years, you say, man, there's really good growth here. And we're able to sustain this growth. Maybe you have to hire new people or whatever it is, but you're getting, for a couple of years, you're getting really good growth. Mm-hmm. Sustained growth is another criteria. You're able to keep the growth going. If you have 2 great years and then it just flatlines or starts to come down, well, it's not ready yet because it's not achieving its potential. Maybe it's a dud. Maybe you got a dud and you got to pull out. You cut your losses and go out. So sustained growth is criteria number 2. Okay. One is critical mass. Two is sustained growth. The third one for me comes down, as mentioned, the cost structure. If it's going to merge, let's say it's going to merge with your core business, as I said before. If you've got a core business of 5 people doing $1 million a year, and then you've got let's call it the startup with 5 people doing $100,000 a year because it's in high growth mode. If you merge those together, you've now got 10 people doing 1.1 million. It doesn't work out. It's going to disrupt your cost model. It's going to mess up your books. It's just not going to work. So the third criterion for me is when the cost model or the financials of the new business look something like the core business. Okay. Let's say you're in your core business, maybe your labor cost is 30% of your cost, maybe materials is 30, and maybe profits the rest. Once your new business starts to approximate that, then you can merge the two together without being too disruptive. If in your new business, even if they're both $1 million, if you're 90% labor in your new business, only 30% in the core business, which you really know and understand, it's going to be ugly when it comes together. You're not going to be able to tell what's what and what's going on. So the third criteria for me is when the cost models or the operating models of business start to look similar. Don't have to be identical, but they start to look similar. So if you blend them together, okay, you're not disrupting everything.
Okay. No, that makes sense. It came from here. This is how I want to operate. This is where we operate successfully. So if this business that I'm trying to grow and spin off or, add as a core service, right, doesn't match the financials, then I either need to fix it or we need to drop it. Like we can start making decisions, right? We've put money into it. We've tried to make it work. It's not working. Okay, I can drop it because I know that in order for the business to be successful, it has to be run this way. So once again, it comes down to knowing your numbers and being able to play with them and say, this makes us successful.
And as I think about it, maybe you never merge them together. Mm-hmm. Maybe perhaps you have your core business, and again, I make this up: 30% labor cost, 30% materials, and the rest is profit and other odds and ends. If that's your core business, maybe you have a wonderful new business which just happens to be 10% labor and 50% materials. equally profitable, equally
Hmm.
good business. You merge those together, you're not going to be able to really differentiate as you manage those businesses. They're too different. So you may decide if the operating models or business models are that different, your cost models are that different, you never merge them together. And maybe you keep them separate divisions, or maybe you do spin off one as a whole new company. But I think in that kind of situation, it'd be very hard to blend them together into one. So it'd be like, yeah, two divisions within the same company, or you spin it off and actually have a new company.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
makes
No, yes, definitely. I'm going to interrupt this real quick here. It's time to make your plans to travel to Las Vegas with me to hit the show floor at the International Surface event. Our sponsor, Tice, has provided me with an incredible offer for you listeners. You can now register for a free exhibits pass with the code KYLE, that's KYLE, for those of you who can't spell my name. Registration is open online at www.intlsurfaceevent.com/register. It's all happening in Las Vegas the 31st of January through the 2nd of February, 2023. Don't miss the special podcast episode this December, which will give you the inside scoop on what's happening at the event. Homeowner tenure is at an 8-year low, with the average length of ownership being 6.31 years. During ongoing times of building material supply constraints, does a 25-year or lifetime warranty on your materials mean anything anymore? Johns Manville Go Board offers a limited 10-year manufacturer warranty on all of its products and a list of approved alternative products covered under our warranty. Don't hold up your project because you can't piece together a full system. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for more information. Okay, Chris. We're talking about kind of spinning it off, making sure that maybe we push it out and it's its own company because the business model's much more unique than the one it came out of. Maybe we combine them because they're similar. I think what I'd like to know next is how much are you able to borrow from Johns Manville, right? Like I know, like using GoBoard as the example, it was a roofing product that then got changed. So the manufacturing process had to change a little bit, but the machines were already there, right? Like the factory was already there. The supply chain to procure the materials was already there. So how much does that help us get established? How much of that should we kind of be borrowing and leveraging to make a new idea successful going forward?
you, to use the word borrow. You borrow everything you can. I'm not talking about borrowing money from a bank. You borrow everything you can. You think if you're gonna take on a new high risk venture, and everything takes money, everything takes resources.
Hmm.
Um, Being a high risk venture, or just not even high risk, any new venture is risky. There's always, however much homework you do, there's always risk in doing it. How so? You've got to think, if it doesn't work, I'm one of life's optimists, and James management calls me up on that all the time. And am I realistic? I'm an optimist. Well, I can't do my job without being an optimist. I'm always looking for
Hmm.
new things, new businesses. But you have to think about, what if it goes wrong? What if I invest to start this new division, this new business? What if it doesn't work out? I don't want to lose everything. I don't want to lose $100,000 or half a million. What's the worst thing that could happen? You lose all this money. A lot of bad things can happen. So the question is, how can you get into your venture, your new venture, with the minimum amount of investment? Uh, you know, we call it fixed costs.
Hmm.
If I
Hmm.
suddenly said, hey, I got this idea for making GoBoard. I need you to build me a plant. It's $35 million. I need to hire six full-time salespeople. I need all these other resources to make it happen. That's going to be that's a tough sell. I don't think I could
Yes.
pull that off. But I say, I got this thing. It's called GoBoard. We want to go into the tile market. And my first thought is, how do I minimize the upfront investment? Because if it all goes wrong, James doesn't want to be left with a bill for $35 million. So how can I leverage the assets I have? In my case, it's a manufacturing plant. as
Hmm.
the biggest asset. For a small business, how can I leverage what I have? Can I leverage the equipment I have? Even the transportation, the vans, the train, the tools, can I leverage what I have without having to buy new stuff? So for me, it's, if I can get into it without building a whole new plant, that's a good thing. It's more likely to get started. So one is, can I use an existing plant, or can I get someone to private label it for me? Can I get somebody else to make my Go Board product,
Hmm.
and they just put a JM label on it and we sell it? Uh, Luckily, we manufacture our own product, but that's another way to get into it without putting $35 million in upfront costs.
Yes.
And maybe, but come year 2 or 3 or 4, you say, man, this is really growing. Now we can afford to build our own manufacturing plant. And then there's a cost reduction, and that's how it can move forward. But starting out is, how can I minimize my investment? Another one we had with GoBoard was the sales team. We went nationally. So there's 52 states, a lot of regions of the country, a lot of big cities. If I said to Johns Manville, hey, I want to hire 12 salespeople, full-time salary or salary-based salespeople, and commission and benefits and cars and health insurance, all that stuff. I want to hire 12 of these people to start off. That's not going to happen.
Hmm.
What if it
Hmm.
goes wrong? What are these 12 people? We don't want to mess up people's lives and careers saying, yeah, you worked for us for 2 years, you're all going to go now. So we went with the model of sales agents, because sales agents are very motivated. I love sales agents. If they don't sell, they don't eat. I love working
Yes.
with sales agents. They know how they earn money. They're very smart. How they allocate their time and where they go. Um, they have the same motivation that we do. And I think we can get into sales agents. Some of ours we've had probably half of ours we've had right from the start. They haven't changed. One or two have come and gone for various reasons. But it's all on the theme of, how can I get into this business with the minimum amount of resources or investment. If it
Hmm.
grows, all that stuff can come later.
Yes.
So I've forgotten your original question now, Kyle. Yeah, leveraging resources. So within the company, we do that, and from the business side, we have human resources departments here. We have a
Hmm.
finance department. We have a customer service group for our other businesses. We're very lucky. We can borrow them. Look at our financials every month. We get on the business finance people. We borrow their time, customer service, account management, transportation, logistics. We're very fortunate that it all exists inside our company. We are now at the point we have dedicated account management, customer service for GoBoard. It's grown to that point, so we add people as we need to. But
Okay.
it's great in a bigger company. We can borrow what's there.
So it's just looking at your resources and figuring out what can I afford to give to this thing to help nurture it along, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to have a child and lock it in the closet and expect to be able to show back up in 18 years and say, all right, you're ready to go out on your own. You've got to take a piece of yourself and give it to your child, essentially. Like, it becomes this selfless act of, okay, this is my baby. I need to get it built and grown up and educated and successful. And so I think the example of what equipment do I have that could be used elsewhere, because a lot of days that demo equipment, if I'm not starting a project and I'm in the middle of an install, that demo equipment's just sitting in my trailer. So it's already been paid for, it's been invested in, but now it's not earning me any money. So how could I take it and get it out there? Um, what other skills do you have, right? We use the epoxy coatings example. We have, do you have some kind of equipment that can do cleaning? I know I did an episode a while back with my buddy Matt Garcia in Texas, and he's got the Bona Power Scrubber machine. So it's a floor cleaning machine. Well, could you take that and just start offering floor cleaning instead of just doing it on your personal projects when you're done with the floor to get it all nice and shiny? What if you hired a guy that, you can pay 20, 25 bucks an hour to? He drives it around and he just cleans floors for people. Especially with the holidays coming up, huge. Who's not going to want a home to look nice when they have all their family coming in and they're hosting an event? Like,
Yeah.
what do we have that we can take and use, and how do we get it to be successful? And do you have a a lot of companies, you guys have an in-house marketing team and advertising team, and then I know you also outsource some of that stuff, but do you have, as a contractor, are you using any kind of paid Google advertising, or what is built into your website? Can you take some of that? Can you work with your web person and take some of that SEO and build another website and then just automatically implement that SEO into the new one? And now it's going to gain steam and traffic a lot faster because it's already got a proven track record in your area of being successful. You've already built one thing up from the ground up. Why struggle and reinvent the wheel? Like it's completely foolish. Can you speak on that, of like lessons learned where people are coming to you and they're like, we got to do this, that, and the other thing, and you're like, no, we have all these resources over here. Like, go pull from that. Are you ever having to stop the team from like getting too far outside the box and reel them back in and be like, no, we have resources, like, come use them?
Yeah. But you're right. You leverage everything you can, and you gave some. I gave the example of manufacturing plant because that's kind of the way I think. If you have a business, you probably already have an office. You probably have somebody um, answering the phones. You already have transportation. If you want to do van, do you lease a van as opposed to buying one? You're not putting the capital outlay. Um, Leverage every single thing you have for your new business. So you've got to have enough investment resources in your new business to make it successful, but don't duplicate whatever you have. It's not necessary. And interesting how you bring up the marketing side. You mentioned Google. This has been an eye opener for me. You know Shauna. She What she does on the social media and Google advertising side is phenomenal. It was not a skill set that I think anybody in Johns Manville had.
Mm.
Shauna brought it to us, and the value you can get from those kind of ads is truly remarkable. Because you got to think about whatever your new business venture is going to be, or even your current venture. And I'm sure all your listeners know this already, Carl. But where do you go? I want a new floor. What's the first thing you do? You go into Google. New floor in Littleton, Colorado.
Hmm.
And it comes up with 1, 2, and 3 contractors or stores or people to call. It's interesting. This is like half a dozen that first page. Nobody ever goes to page 2. They stay on page 1. They pick the top 1, 2, and 3. And I know you can pay more to be number 1, number 2, or 3. You certainly don't want to be on page 2 because nobody ever goes there. You got to be on the front. And, the kind of things I've learned, and it's very, very inexpensive to advertise on those kind of platforms through Google or whoever else you're doing it on. It's not something I had any experience of, but my eyes have really been open to what's available today and how cost effective it can be.
It can be. It looks, there's certain keywords that would be very expensive up front, and if you're looking at cost per lead, it can add up. But if the right business is going to be able to afford $1,000 a lead, right? We're going to be able to go close $100,000 job, and $1,000 is nothing. But if it was a standard guy doing a $5,000 project for a floor, $1,000 lead isn't going to cut it, right? We need to get that down,
Yeah.
probably less than 500 for sure. I think 10% is a good number, but even then, I would want to see it at somewhere between like 1 to 5%.
Yeah.
We got to leave
I
some
mean,
money in my pocket here.
right. Well, it's like when I was younger. You probably maybe you remember this guy. You pull out yellow. There's no internet. You go to the yellow pages. I have a
Yes.
friend in California has a roofing contractor, and I'll give you his name. The name of the contractor is AAA by Gene, run by Gene Smith. Why is it AAA by Gene? Because he's the first roofing contractor in the yellow pages. Doesn't really. You just want to be the first on the list, and
Yes.
for maybe $10 a lead, you can get onto Google and say you want to be number 1 or 2 or 3 on that search page, and or you could send flyers round to every house in your area. 50,000 houses. You do other things, cold calling. Man, you just want to be there when people want to know. And the first thing to do is going to go to Google, and there you are. So I have no shares in Google. I'm not invested. But it's just I think that's just the world we live in today, and that's what people do. So it's a way, how do I approach my, if you have the existing assets, existing capabilities into a
Hmm.
new market, how do you approach those people in that new market? You just understand the kind of thing that they do. How do they how do they look for contractors or installers? What are they looking for? You've got to address that. You've got to
Hmm.
find out what to do. Although all this, we're doing this over the internet, Carl, this meeting. There's a lot of Zoom and Teams meetings today.
Yes.
Again, I'm older. I wasn't brought up with that, and I still believe that human beings have developed over the last 2 million years by face-to-face communication.
Yes.
We can do stuff. In my opinion, you can never beat the value of face-to-face communication. Um, so another thing, if you're growing your core business or a new business, you've got to meet people. You've got to always meet people, people who could be potential customers, breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee. Meet these people, go and talk to them face to face. Prospective customers, old customers, new customers, always spend time face to face. You're amazed what people will tell you and what you will learn. The more you understand your customers and potential customers, the more successful you're going to be. And for me, I still believe the key is face-to-face meetings. Keep it 15-minute coffee with somebody. You will learn something that will help your
Hmm.
business get
Hmm.
better. Never forget that.
I believe it. There's look, we're built to be social creatures. Like we need the interaction. The technology is great. I love that I can interview people all around the world, um, and even within the country. Like it's fabulous that we can have this meeting. But sitting down in a room with somebody belly to belly, there's a lot different environment within it. It's this fakes it fairly well, but it's definitely not the same. There's a you don't get that same feeling. You don't pick up on all the micro expressions that people have and whatnot. And that's
Yeah,
that's what's missing from it. Is it takes
yeah.
some of that personal engagement out of it. So
And you know yourself, Carl. If you there are different ways to run a business, big or small. If you just want to be the low price bidder every time,
mhm.
great. Transactional relationship, do it over the web, phone call, email, here's my bid. That's great. Um, a lot of folks at his small business, and I've took a lot of contractors and stores I've known over the years. I know a lot of roofing folks. There's one guy I know in Chicago. You say to him, Jim, you don't sell roofing, do you? You sell yourself. He goes in to meet customers. He's a very confident individual, has a good track record. He sells the value he brings.
Mhm. Mhm.
I bring you peace of mind. When I install your, let's say, floor, you're never going to have to worry about it again. Because if there's a problem, I will come right back and fix it. I use the best materials, my personal guarantee. I've been doing this for 30 years. Whatever it is, you're selling yourself. And by the way, the floor's the product they're buying.
Yes.
So again, it's that face that convey that kind of confidence and that security. Makes people feel good when they meet you. That sense of security. I don't know how you can convey that over a Zoom message or a phone call, and that's why I believe in the power of face to face, especially if you're going to get higher prices and really sell the value that you bring or you believe you bring. I think that's got to be a face to face delivered message.
I agree. There's you can weed people out a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think you need to go sell face to face. And what you're talking about of, you know, look, I don't sell a floor. There's lots of people that sell floors. Have fun with that, right? I come in, I solve your problem. And this is what I bring to the table to solve your problem and make sure that you don't have a problem in the future. And when you're selling that, that's when you can command a higher value than what the rest of the market is. And that's why I've gotten in a lot of discussions and a lot of online fights about people saying what's the going rate in the area, and I'm like, the going rate doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I don't care what it is. That's somebody else's business model. That's not my business. Well, you have to know the going rate. No, I don't.
yeah,
Because if I want to be the Maserati of my area, I can be the Maserati. There's somebody that'll buy. I could go and try and sell my example is always I could try and sell a floor for $1 million. It might take me 10 years to sell one floor for $1 million, but if I talk to enough people, I'll probably get a yes eventually. Or I can, you know, I can sell lots and lots of floors, but maybe I don't get $1 million over 10 years. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's
It,
possible. There's not, you don't change how much your products cost from Johns Manville based on market. It cost us this much. Well, okay, so maybe you do slightly because like shipping cost is more expensive to get it from one area to another, but it's very minor, right? It's pretty much set in stone. Like the product costs this much to manufacture, we need to make this much profit, and here's the price. This is what it goes to, and this is what the dealers get to buy it for, and then they can put their own margins on it and do whatever. But you're not basing it on, well, this area is socioeconomically depressed, so we have to sell it cheaper here, and this is a ritzy area, so we need to be more expensive. that's
mhm.
not that's not how business works. It doesn't matter if I'm putting a floor in section 8 housing, or I'm going and working on the Taj Mahal. Like if it's the same product going in, the cost is the same regardless. Now, the Taj Mahal is
Yeah.
probably going to get a more expensive product, which means there's more liability. So we have to change that equation. But on a base level, you can't do business that way. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to know what you're bringing to the table, and then you have to charge accordingly. You can't just be
Yeah.
like, oh, well, this area can't afford that. Then they
Yeah.
can't. I guess they don't get your services then.
Right. Right. I think my own domestic situation is probably similar to very many people, or a certain class of people. Someone comes around to do a big job in my house, and I'll say, like, I have to get in Colorado, you have to get your house painted every 5 or 7 years. The sun destroys everything. And so we get the house painted. It's, a reasonable amount of money. And so you normally get two bids, maybe a third, some, but usually two.
Hmm.
And of course, I'm looking, hey, what's the materials you're using? What's the cost of this? What's the price? Whatever, all this stuff. And I look at that stuff. And my wife, who is obviously the ultimate decision maker, she goes, yeah, I didn't like that first guy very much. The second one gave me more confidence. I get a better feel for him.
Hmm.
And I looked up reviews on the internet, and they got a lot of very good reviews the first one, maybe a few questionable reviews. And of course, we'll end up doing what my wife says. But it's the different approach. Who's making the decision? Everyone comes around to my house, so it's obviously my wife. But the kind of question she's going to ask is obviously hers. But it's
Hmm.
she really doesn't care about the products. The flooring case, she doesn't care what kind of epoxy you're using, what manufacturer it
Yeah.
is, or what thickness or quality. It's like, are you a good company? Do you look like a good person? Do I trust you
Yes.
to do a job? And that comes back to the face to face as well. And the company does that. They could be more expensive than the other one, but it doesn't matter because my wife likes them. It gives her confidence. Price
Hmm.
becomes less relevant, and I believe that's my opinion. That's what you get from a face to face,
I would agree. And
which
it
means which
to
means higher prices.
well, and to loop this back around, right? If you're able to charge those higher prices, you're going to have more profit, which means then you have money that you can funnel into other ventures and look at, how do I grow, how do I expand, what other parts of the market are adjacent to me, and can I start being in that would be a good fit for my business? How can I continue to dominate this space? Because I don't
Yeah.
want to just exist in it and be a player. I want to grow something that is recognized. A good example is that my buddy here in town does demo. He only does demo. That's all he does. And at the point when he had 3 crews, people were like, "Man, we see you everywhere." There was only 3 trucks driving around that were
Right.
wrapped, but there was a job on the west side of town, a job on the north side of town, a job on the east side of town. And so there was enough signage that you look bigger than you are. And so it was an investment in, do I really want to wrap the truck? No, I'd rather save the 5 grand per truck for myself. But that's paid off in spades because it was, man, these guys are everywhere. They're huge. Like, we have to go with them. They're the company that's around and has great reviews, and they're personable. Their crews are great.
That's
And so,
interesting.
yeah, so you make it look like you're everywhere when you're not, and then
Yeah,
it's turned off, and now he's running like 7, 8 crews. So
that's
that,
pretty interesting. Funny, you mentioned reviews, and I did as well. I'd never really thought about this much, but online reviews are critical as well. And you do. I go to the dentist. He said, "Will you write a review?" It's like,
mhm,
no, but people do write reviews, and my wife in particular, she always reads the reviews, whether it's Yelp or Google, whatever it might be. She always reads the reviews, and you understand that everyone's going to get good reviews, everyone's going to get bad reviews. It's just the way things are. But what we look for, if you get a bad review, often the company will have a response. It's
mhm.
not just a list of good, bad, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star, whatever. On the bad one, or maybe the good ones too, companies respond saying, 5 star review. Thank you. I enjoyed working with you. Great experience. Glad we were able to make you happy.
Yep.
The next one, the 1 star review. Terrible. This broke. That broke. And it doesn't matter. I think I found as long as the company has responded saying, "Oh, Kyle, I'm really sorry you had this experience. I know we dealt with this afterwards. Call me on this number. We'll do this." Oh, whatever it is.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
even a bad, don't ignore a bad review. If you
Yes.
get a bad review, respond to it and just saying, "Oh, this is terrible. This is not how we do business. I know this went badly. We had, two of the guys were out sick. They had COVID this week. The job dragged. Whatever it was, explain it and explain how you're going to fix it, how you're going to make it right, and you can then the negative review doesn't matter anymore. You've kind of neutralized that negative review. You still have the positive ones. So I
Yep.
think that's becoming increasingly important. Don't leave any reviews out there unanswered.
I agree. I think answering every review is very important, whether it's the 5 star review, the 1 star review. And a lot of times, look, I get it. 1 star reviews will come from that crazy client that just was never going to be pleased. Okay, that's fine if that's where it came from. You can respond, put your side of the story. Don't respond in anger. Don't respond being sarcastic. Just put the facts. And if somebody comes along, because we all love to read the 1 star reviews, they're going to read your reply, and they can determine for themselves, okay, this company either really sucks at what they do, or that person is absolutely nuts, and this company tried to go above and beyond and they weren't appreciative. So, all right, I don't need to take this 1 star review seriously. And actually, it's good. I think the numbers, it's like 4.2. You don't want to be a 5 star business. You don't want to be 4.9. You don't want to be four. It's like, I think it's
Interesting.
4.2 or 4.3. Like, you need that
Yeah.
just smidge little bit of imperfection, and people will respond better to you. And I say that, and I don't have any negative reviews. I need to work harder to get a negative review.
Yeah.
um,
I
good.
will tell you, after 20 years, it's been a privilege to work for Johns Manville because every company's good at something. A real core thing they're good at. For Johns Manville, it's customer relationships.
Mm,
Yeah, we're pretty good at making products, all the stuff in business. This company's truly outstanding at customer relationships. The customer is the most important thing we have. It's just because it makes it easy to do business, and the other part is it's very expensive. It's easy to lose a customer. It's very hard to get a new one.
yes.
It's very expensive to get a new customer. So you've got to take care of the ones you've got. And if you let your 5 star review, Carl, if everything you do goes brilliantly, everybody trusts you. That's okay. Anyone can be a good partner, supplier, provider when things are going well. What differentiates the good from the bad is how you behave when things don't go well. Doing a flooring job, something goes wrong. How do you step up and take care of your customer? That tells you how good a partner or supplier, provider, contractor you really are. How do you behave when things go badly? That says so much more about you than when things go well.
Hmm, hmm.
That differentiates the good from the great. And I think it's not. This is not about GoBoard. The GoBoard's included. It's the whole of Johns Manville. We are good at that. If you buy something from us or do something, if it goes wrong, we will take care of you. Period. I said a long time. I'd rather lose money than lose a customer, or rather lose money than lose my reputation.
I agree. And I don't think lifetime value of a client's looked at often enough. You know, you can either have that upset person and you lost out on being able to fix it for $10, $20, whatever it's going to be, right? Maybe it's a couple thousand. But if you make them happy and they trust you still, like you said, it's more expensive to gain a new client. But if they keep coming back for another 10 years and they're spending $50,000 a year with you, that cheap fix up front was nothing. And I think it's, once again, to kind of go back to this whole like building another division, things like that, you had mentioned trying to, what problem can you solve for the client? If you're already in their home and you keep having this clients come up to you and ask you over and over and over again, can you do this? Can you do this? Like, I understand it that sometimes it's like way out in left field and you can't do it. But if there's something that's very adjacent to the core skills you have and a lot of
Mm.
the equipment you have will do it, it might be a good idea to look at that as a new offering. Maybe you
Yeah,
have to go get some education on it or whatever, but if it's being requested, you have some of the tools for it. Why not look at that as an additional revenue stream? So,
brilliant. I mean, as you're saying that, I'm thinking absolutely. You gave the example of floor cleaning. Maybe it's residential. I don't know. Some
mhm.
company, you're in their house. That's 90%. You're in their house and you're doing the job. I'm cleaning the carpet. I'm cleaning the floor. Maybe a epoxy floor, hardwood floor. It's like, man, why don't I get the carpet cleaning? It's an adjacency. I know about cleaning floors. I'm already in the house. Let's do both. Or, yeah, as you said, other things you can do adjacent to your core competencies. What else can you do while you're in there? Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine the hardest part is getting into somebody's house, getting them to. You get your bid, they give you the request, you turn up at the appointed time, you're in. What else can you do while you're there? I think
Mhm.
that's a wonderful example, Carl. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else, Chris, that we should have touched on within trying to spin something out on its own?
Um, there's in terms of innovation in general.
Mhm.
Um, the, the example I was reading recently, in 1920, the average life of an S&P 500 company was 67 years.
Hmm.
Today, it's 15.
Wow.
So, in a big scale, these big companies, you have to innovate just to stand still. You have to reinvent yourself to stand still. You have to do new things in new ways, find new adjacencies, new opportunities. Maybe this new spin-off becomes your new core business because the other one's dying, or it's in it. You have to innovate just to stand still, find new and better ways to do things. We talk about sales, marketing, way of approaching customers, new equipment, new technologies. You have to innovate just to stand still, let alone get ahead. So always look out for those things. And I'm sure your customer, I'm sure the majority of your customers are very successful. They've either read that or done it, or they just probably most of them are smart enough they worked that out on their own. But doing the same thing again and again, eventually it's going to catch up with you. You have to keep looking for new ways to do things. Um, I can I mention GoBoard quickly? we had a tile contractor because GoBoard, it's not it's one of the it's quite a lightweight board. He
Mhm.
said you probably extended my tiling career by 10 years because I don't have to carry heavy things around. I can now carry light stuff.
Yeah.
So there's an example of I can see a lot of people saying, but I've done it this way for 30 years. I've never had a problem. Why would I change? Well, at some point, something will force you to change. You could retire
Yes.
at that point, or you could change what you do, go for a lighter weight or the lighter weight solutions, and you extend your career.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point in that if you're not innovating, you're dying. And especially these days, like you've got to stay on top of it the way the world changes around you. And that's one thing I've noticed since getting involved within the flooring industry, the tile and stone industries is I see a lot of big companies. I see a lot of retailers. Well, this is the way we've always done it.
Mhm.
And yeah. And when I look around at the industry, I say, you got to stop saying that, because we need to move forward. It's the people aren't
Yeah,
the same as they used to be. That's why you can't find help. We can't move products in the same way. The internet's a thing. Like
yeah.
there is a lot of things that I see that haven't been innovated on for a long time. And there's a couple of companies that are coming around saying, we're going to start offering to do this differently. We're going to look at it differently. We're going to pitch it differently. And they are being very, very successful right now.
Can,
And they
can
are
you
they are
imagine any
disrupting
company?
a lot of the industry.
Can you imagine any company, big, small, on the stock exchange or whatever, saying, we got a new strategy. We decided we are not going to innovate. How do you think that's going to go down with investors? Is that not the way to do it? And my favorite quote of all time, I think, is that Charles Darwin, if you believe in evolution, Charles Darwin, I don't think he ever actually said it's only the strongest or fittest that survive, but those most adaptable to change.
Hmm.
That would, if I'd ask you or your listeners to take away any message, remember that one.
That's
To
good.
those
That's
who
good.
survive and those most adaptable to change.
I love that. That is absolutely true. Um, all right. I think that'll, I appreciate your time. I think we'll wrap it up there. I think that's a great place to end it, in that we need to be adaptable to change. And that's why we should look at, what can we do with our business to grow it, expand it, diversify it. And as you said earlier, sometimes the new thing will overtake the old thing, and you let the old thing go by the wayside. So I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Chris, I want to thank you for your time and being able to come on and share with the listeners some of your expertise and insights. Folks, love reviews. Please, it helps me punch way above my rankings in the podcast stuff. If you go and leave a review, make sure you subscribe. That helps. Check out the YouTube channel. I'd really love to grow that. Just search Floor Academy on YouTube. And that's going to do it for us this week. And we will catch you later.